Just tend to go over that
We tend to go.
30-minute mark.
Yep.
So,
Someone keeps asking questions.
Yeah.
I'll just keep seconding.
That's it. Thank you.
What I say.
Okay, I will call this Finance Committee meeting October 17th, 2022, at 6 p.m. It's a little bit after, to order. First order of business would be the approval of the September 19th minutes.
Which I printed out and left at home.
Would you like to look at them?
No, I printed everything out and left at home.
I hate when I do that.
I printed out the agenda.
But I did read them.
I
Okay.
didn't have any questions.
Okay, and you seconded?
I second.
Thank you. Okay, no questions and no questions. All right, me neither. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. And we'll move on to the exciting STEP ratio and the official Act 1 index. Dan, I will turn it over to you.
all right. Everybody see that okay with the lights,
Yep.
or do you want me to get the lights?
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
Better not be sleeping while
That's
I'm watching.
You just seconded it again.
Yeah, you did. I heard.
All right, so some of this is a recap of what we've discussed the past
Perfect.
couple of meetings. Some of it is just a little tweak with the adjusted Act 1 index being official now. So just to run through some of the STEP impacts for 23-24, we have about $127,000 worth of gross revenue reduction. So as we discussed before, as the STEP ratio increases, the revenue decreases, or the available revenue decreases. So I can send this out too. I know you guys are writing
It's okay.
vigorously. I'll send this back out.
I have to give a report at the end of the month. That's the only reason I'm doing it.
Gotcha. So that's the 127,000, that's a net reduction. The assessment changes so far, so that's to date. We'll have another round of assessment changes, usually in December, and then I think we usually get another one before the bills go out. Those will be, right now, they're yielding another 105,396 of additional revenue. So not completely absorbing the STEB impact. So net revenue reduction is at 21,427 as we stand right now. As we went through before, Green Lane Borough is the lowest STEB ratio. It's the 61.16960%. And that's, just to recap, that's the assessed value divided by the market value to get to that. And, released in June. So an update on the Act 1 index. At the end of September, PDE released the calculation for the official calculation and index for the 23-24 school year, and that base index is the 4.1%. I think we had touched on that previously. We had it as an estimate, is where we thought it was going to be. Now it's official.
Okay.
Just as everyone loves definitions, so if you're going to throw this up here as well. So market value, personal income, and weighted average daily membership. These factors impact what goes from the base Act 1 index that's applicable to all districts across the Commonwealth to the adjusted Act 1 index, which relates to each individual district, but it takes into account each district's market value, personal income, and daily membership. So as we move forward, the adjusted index, this gets a little busy, but it takes the market value aid ratio and personal income aid ratio. It's not quite average, it's a 60%, 40% split between those. And then that gets applied to the 4.1 base index. So essentially the calculation is you take the 4.1 base index times the sum of 0.75, that's a standard percentage, plus the market value personal aid ratio, personal income aid ratio, and then multiply that by the 4.1. So as we run through the calculation, and it's rounded up to basically even to the tenths. So currently, for the 23-24 school year, our adjusted Act 1 index is 5%, 5.0% opposed to the 4.1 base index. So as we were going through, I think the past couple of meetings, we were estimating about 4.9. I was close,
Close.
but it's really 5.0.
Okay.
Quick question, can you back up one slide for a second, David? The 2021 values are used for the budget year, the market value. So the market value
It's always 2 years.
is always 2 years behind, okay.
Mhm.
So the fluctuation in market values we're having this year is going to just 2 years from now?
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
As going through this and putting together the slide, I was thinking the same thing. Okay, well, market values are definitely up, so we should see that impact as we move forward.
It should be an interesting year.
Go ahead,
But
go ahead.
Green Lane is still always lowest because they don't, there's not as many properties, and they don't sell as many properties. I mean, that might have changed, but I doubt it. I mean, it's just smaller,
Yeah.
because you can't help itself.
Anything else?
Done, thank you.
I have a question for the calculation for the adjusted index. Why 0.75? Like, you said it's always that
Because
number.
PE says so.
So
It-
they just say every year it's 0.75, or
It's-
does it change?
It's 0.7.
It's always 0.75.
So it's
So the-
0.75 plus then.
That
each-
4591, that number can
That's the
change each
fluctuation.
year. But the
Right.
0.75 is, and that's everybody. Like anybody who's doing this, they do 0.75?
Mhm.
That's
Okay.
every school district,
Yeah,
right?
it's that.
Okay.
That's a standard part of the calculation, and then the variable is the market value rate ratio and, to personal income aid ratio. That's what's going to vary district to district based on their demographics.
Okay.
And actually, just to touch base, that's going back to the very first bullet point, that's applicable to any ratio that's greater than 0.4. So as that ratio decreases, once you fall below 0.4, it just becomes a 0.75. So then there's not an additional
Adjustment.
factor in the calculation.
So like, say, North Penn has 0.39.
Right.
So theirs is just 0.39. That's 0.75 plus 0.39
Yeah.
times
And
4.1%.
the adjustment does not come into effect.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, with that being said, shall we move on to capital balance adjustment for the roofing bids?
Almost.
Oh, okay, so, I'm sorry,
So
I'm sorry.
just showing this in a,
I tried. I tried.
it was going to be a half hour, but now we're not there, sorry. First two numbers here, the effect of the assessment increase, we went over on the prior slide, 105. The effective step of the decrease of 126. I also wanted to show the effect of the maximum Act 1 index. So that's at 1.997, so you can round up and say roughly a $2 million revenue income increase at a 5% millage increase. So net all that together, without exceptions, we're at 1.975 if at a 5% at the max Act 1 index.
Right.
So just wanted to put that out
We
there.
can't make any more than 1.975, or 1.997.
Unless we want to go to exceptions, but no, or
Yeah.
referendum, but no, that's, let's say that 1.975 is without any exceptions or referendum. That would be the max increase that we would yield, as it is right now with the changes of the assessed value today.
Right.
I'll caveat that because any changes to the assessed value prior to the end of the year will also change some of these calculations.
Okay.
So.
Okay, now we can move on to capital funds and the roofing bids. Yay.
So we brought this slide up at the last meeting. Everything is the same except for the 4th and 5th grade roofing. So we had 192,000 and change in here. That was based on some estimates that we had based on square footage and dollars per square footage for the roofing project. Since that time, Mr. Kenwood came back and really was really thrilled to let me know that it came in, the bids that came in were higher, and they were substantially higher. So just wanted to provide an update on the capital funds projection with all of the expenses that we have here.
Okay.
And that 260 is with the
The
additions,
add-ons?
the add-ons, the
Yep.
thicker
Yep.
roofing and all that. Yep.
So,
235. plus
Yeah,
expenses.
plus the other stuff. Yep.
so just wanted to present that just to give an updated balance, projected balance here with that additional increase of the $67,000.
Okay. And we haven't paid all of the Alertus system yet? Is that
The-
right? I'm sorry, I should probably know that
Um,
off the top of my head.
I think that was still, it's probably paid at this point. I think we had the bill in hand. Truthfully, I copied over the prior meeting.
Okay, that's fine.
And just wanted to reflect that individual change.
Okay,
So at this point, it's paid, it's probably paid, so that current balance would increase by, but
okay. All right. Oh, food service contract with WMCTC. Lordy,
that's why we have a visitor.
I figured. I saw the connection.
So, not sure if everybody is aware, but we do run the cafeteria at the Western Center, and we've been operating that since, it appears, 2012. We started going back, trying to dig through, prior contracts with them. And originally, when we took over operating that cafeteria, it was Springford and Pottsgrove students participating. Our students, ate here at the high school, either before they went out in the afternoon or after they returned from the morning.
Yep.
And it's pre-ninth grade students for all the schools. Like the ninth graders weren't attending
Right.
in 2012.
Right.
Oh,
That's more recent,
Right.
past 5 years.
So we're responsible for it, and Paul is responsible for providing the staffing, training, and making sure that we're operating in compliance with the National School Lunch Program. And in return for operating the cafeteria and the food service out there, the contract stipulates that we receive $1,650 for the 10 months of operating, so yielding $16,500 annually. My understanding of, we moved into this to servicing the Western Center, as potentially a way to not only, make sure that the kids are fed appropriately, but also from a cost savings perspective, it was less expensive for us to basically manage that CAF, opposed to having to be able to outsource previously to, I always screw this one,
Charles.
Charles. So, we took over the operations with that particular building. Since that time, so since 2012, we renegotiated the contract once. It used to be, instead of $1,650, it was $1,340, so $1,340 per year, or per month for the operating admin fee. For as long as I've been here, so since 2016, we've had issues staffing and recruiting for the Western Center positions. That involves both the manager position to the staff position out there. For a while, we basically had one person manning the kitchen. We have one register that we operate. Ideally, we'd have 2 registers running. We've had many conversations with the Western Center, with principal, prior administration principal, and the executive director, as well as the current. The amount of time that also goes into operating a building that is substantially outside of the district when compared to our district buildings has kind of taken its toll. So as we kind of look at that admin fee as, okay, we're running the building, we're running the kitchen, that's going to be something that's going to take some amount of time. And if we were to say you took an equal amount of time as our in-house buildings, that would be one thing. Right now and for a while, the Western Center has taken up the lion's share of Paul's time. of Christine's time and the administrative assistant. And not just from staffing, but also just over, supervision, oversight. When we had we had the audit last year.
It was last year.
So last year, that becomes a site that is auditable, essentially, and so we had to do, we had to go out there and do the audit for PE. Like I said, the location is far from convenient. We've done, as far as trying to remedy the situation with staffing and recruiting, we've been in touch with both Springford and Pottsgrove as far as asking them to put essentially an advertisement for that position on their website, so it links back.
They're a lot closer, yeah.
They have links back to our, to our district site, so basically trying to promote that as much as possible. But it's been less than stellar results as far as finding appropriate staff. And on a final side of it, the communications between the sending districts and us. So when we're, from the operational side of it and the reporting side for National School Lunch and basically meal reimbursement, we need to get all the student data into our system, so we're able to track and report all of the students who are eating there. So any of the meal counts that come in, we're reporting not just our students that are there, but also the Springford and Pottsgrove students. Inevitably, at some point,
That sounds ugly to me.
the miscommunication will come in where we should know, ideally we would know if the student were free or reduced eligible, and there are times,
That we don't.
probably let Christine speak to this, but I can let Paula speak to it, because it's kind of the bane of Christine's existence. But when we don't find out, and we're essentially not reporting because we were not notified that students were either free or reduced, and then essentially we're out of pocket in that particular situation, because going back to a student who is eligible for free, we just weren't notified from the other district, just causes some issues there. And essentially we take that one on the chin to a degree. Usually we find out pretty quickly, and it's usually a relative, it's a couple of meals, it's a few days. But there are times where we find out substantially
Months later.
later. So some of the conversations we've had, we've kind of been trying to staff this appropriately. Currently, Paula is going out 2 days. 2 days a
Two or
week.
3 days.
2 or 3 days a week.
depending.
And Christine Vogel, administrative assistant for food service, is covering the managerial position for the other 2 or 3 days. We do have a part-time person out there, which is the first time we've had a part-time person out there for probably 2 years.
Easily, yeah.
Easily. And so, we're getting some help from the students, some of the students that are out there. But it's not, right now, it's essentially not feasible from an operations standpoint. We started having conversations with the principal and the executive director out there, essentially letting them know this is not working. We're trying to come up with some solution, but realistically, as we kind of look back on the history of the program there and kind of what it's going to look like in the future, we don't know that it's 100% feasible that we can continue providing the food service at Western Center. The contract does stipulate that we would have to give 30 days notice prior to the end of the school year, so prior to the end of June, to essentially terminate the contract. Again, it's not something that we're looking to get out of. If this is something that we could have made feasible, like I said, we've been doing it since 2012.
Yep.
But the kind of writing has been on the wall. We've been limping through, trying to make it work as best we can. But realistically, when it comes down to it, we don't have the staffing set up.
We don't have
We're
it
not-
here.
and we haven't
Can't
been able
imagine
to-
we don't have it there.
We haven't been able to kind of get it fully staffed for quite some time. So I don't know if you had anything else.
Yeah, I
to
think
add.
we're interested in officially officially letting them know that we're gonna be done at the end of the school year.
Mhm.
And like give them 6 months, whatever the
Yeah.
lead time is.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if there needs to be board action or anything in terms of us, we're on a year-to-year basis, it's just a matter of us
Okay.
exercising the contract,
Right.
exercising that provision in there.
Has anybody looked into contracted services? Like, I mean,
Yeah, Chartwells or Aramark.
Aramark
these
or
types of things,
somebody.
Yeah, yeah, and Springford has Aramark down
Yeah.
there, in their district, had gone to contracted a couple of years ago. So, I mean, we would have to put an RFP together and put it out for bid and see
Mhm.
what that process would.
So we have to
would
do
yield.
that,
No,
or
Western
Western
Center.
Center?
Western Center would have
Yeah.
to do it.
Essentially, though, to Alan's
record.
point,
Right, exactly.
the sooner that that ball kind of gets
Yep.
rolling, the better off the Western Center is too. as
I think
far
it
as
makes
making
sense.
sure.
I mean, I know, I can
Well,
understand that that's.
I'm
that's fine.
surprised that Upper Park ever took it over because of the distance involved and everything. So I don't know what the history was back then. I'm sure none of us know that at this point.
Well, you know,
Unless you've been here for a
you know,
while.
Donna shared that, you know, when we mentioned this at the JLC meeting, that it was with Chartwells for a while, and it was not going well, however, you know, however that finished up, so it was just a little bit of a smaller operation, I think, at the time. Now it's bursting at the seams, right, all the freshmen
Yeah.
are there, there's still only 3 lunches, so financially, I'm not sure how much the quote-unquote profit, and that's not the reason. I think someone of the 3 districts probably took it on to say, all right, we'll take it on, that way we'll all share the cost savings, so that, because if, whatever Chartwells is, if that 16.5,
Times 3.
well, that would be, I don't know how that worked, but I thought it was much higher. Donna, what'd she say, 30,000, 40,000, something? There was a lot higher of a fee that they were getting to cover that.
Well,
back then.
Chartwell's had problems years ago also, because I remember when I was in Pottsboro years ago, you know, we were always thinking about dumping that. And that was the mid-2000s, and this was
Get
after I left there, so.
Yeah, so, yeah, I'm thinking we want to, I think internally, our admin is ready to, you know, exercise
I don't
that
see a
clause
problem
and
doing that.
and at least
Yeah.
put them on notice that this is the plan, and then we can work on that, and from there, with administration, and there's definitely sample RFPs out there that we can pull together and tailor it, and work with Dave and Donna down there to get something out the door.
You might even be able to, if you put it out for RFP, if you go, you said they have Aramark down there in Springfield?
And Springford has Aramark,
Yeah,
yeah.
you know, Aramark might pick it up, seeing as they're right there, they have a Springfield school, elementary school right around the corner from
Yep.
there.
Yeah.
So they might be able to do some staging and stuff.
Yep.
Makes
Yep.
sense.
So I'd recommend that we
Yeah.
do that.
Okay, I would be good with that too.
I think we'll follow a process of some sort, but I know that when Paul, we first had some struggles early in the year, I had reached out to a contact at Springford, and they seemed like their Aramark was in the same boat as our in-house staffing, like, you know, still struggling with staffing, that type of thing, so. Unlike some of the other contractors that we're working with, that, let's say, security, we are doing, Paul and her team is doing what we're supposed to do when you're a contractor.
Right.
You're fulfilling it at all costs.
Yeah.
That's not happening as you
And
do in
that's not
other areas,
regular.
but that's what we're doing.
Okay.
So I think if everyone's okay, I don't know if we need board action or not, but I think that we're just going to exercise that. I don't know why we're not terminating the contract, we're not trying to get out early.
Right,
Yeah,
right, we're
for
just be
thoughts.
exercising
Go with that.
language in there.
I think we should just tell the rest of the board that this is
Yeah,
admin's
yep. I'll put it in my,
recommendation.
I'll put it in my,
I can certainly have something put together for the Friday, you know, for the board update.
Okay. If not, I'll
That way it's
tell
on
them.
everybody else's radar.
tell them in my report.
Yeah, if we put it in the board updated, and you mentioned at the meeting that we can let them know as early as the 28th. We can
have to add
after the
anything,
board
or-
meeting that.
That's plenty of time
Okay.
to get
Just making
everything
sure.
together.
That way, if anybody has any questions or comments, we're doing it now, not 6 months from now.
When it's crunch
Yeah,
time.
I mean, listen, and I think if best case, I mean, someone were to, if they put the RFP out, let's say, January, and someone wants to get in there in April or May.
They can help themselves, right?
You know,
Got it.
so I think we can let them know that here's
Okay.
our commitment level, but if it happens to fill quicker, or if there is, like I said, our mark is right there, and says, yeah, we can handle that, then.
Okay, that would be nice. Okay. All right, awesome. Anything else on that? If not, we'll move on to extended care RFP. Okay.
So we had talked about this a couple times, and that's when I first started here, there was an RFP with the Y, and it's kind of time to re-up that. The Y had struggled with some staffing pieces, and on their end, do we ever get Marlboro in the morning?
I don't think so.
So this is the opportunity for people to utilize our buildings and coordinate with transportation for parents dropping off at Hereford and Marlboro. and that service for our families. And there's a fee that they pay to use the facility, so it's kind of been some income on our end. You'll often, if you go in the cafeterias and the buildings, you'll see cabinets and things that look like arts and crafts type, for lack of a better term, and that's often the Y Care, let's say, stuff for that. So we have a local, the Y will, some will still be interested. Lifespan is interested, so it's kind of time, I think, for the RFP to go out and see what type of services and/or charges, fees they're willing to pay for access to the buildings in the before and after school care.
Okay.
I don't,
Dan, did I just hear you say Marlboro was currently not doing the before school care?
Yeah, so that was the beginning of the year. And truthfully, I didn't find out again before tonight's meeting to see whether or not they had come back to be able to staff that. So that was back to a staffing issue. They were able to staff it for the PM. Marlboro
Where is
Care.
everybody?
And I think the
They're at
impact
Lexington.
was, they said specifically at that time, the impact was to 6 students.
So they were doing the after school, just not the before school?
Correct.
Okay.
And they were doing before and after care at Hereford.
and then what they do is that
Because they've been doing that for.
Forever.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
when I was working there, we had before school care.
we still don't have the actual official certificate of occupancy for the 4 or 5 center, because the Y was trying to just get a official classroom in there and through all the logistical pieces. So now, parents that have students in the 4th and 5th grade can drop off at Hereford or Marlboro, and they have to become a bus stop on the way in.
Oh.
So they bring them right in as a bus stop. So
Okay.
it's, they're dropping there, let's say if they've got a 4th and 5th grader and then a younger, they're dropping them both together, and then a bus comes and takes the 4 or 5 kids into the 4 or 5.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Kind of a bus along
Yeah.
the way.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
That's great.
So
Makes sense, because they are little.
we're going to work on the RFP and get that out.
Okay. All right.
And then since we were talking about RFPs, and truthfully, I thought that the copiers and printers was 23, and it's apparently 24.
Okay.
So that's one's going to get pushed off. I had a document that said that it ran through June of 23, and then we have another conflicting document that said it was a 60-month term, and that would have taken us to June of 24. So we're putting this together. I realize we don't really need to talk about that.
Never mind.
The one that will also be, one contract that will be coming up also would be our contract with Gorman and Associates for auditing services.
Okay.
It includes the year ending 23, so it includes this fiscal year, which will take us into, this time next year. But then for next year's services, we'll be either re-upping their contract, we'll be looking to see what, if any increases, and then we'll be looking at that. We'll be entertaining an RFP on that front as well. So just kind of keeping the committee abreast of the situation. When we were looking at the copiers, and that's going to be something that Jim and I will be looking at again. This will be pushed back a little bit longer. We've been contracting with Edwards for quite some time, so since 2005. And then we consolidated vendors. We had 2 copier vendors up until 2015, where we had some of our copiers and printers with Edwards, we had some with Ricoh. So we've since consolidated that, but we want to make sure that we're still doing our due diligence when it comes to pricing. So far, Jim's been happy with Edwards and how they've been responsive, even in some of the shortages that we've had with toner and
Yep.
things of that nature. And then the pricing structure, he's been happy with how that is, opposed to what he may have seen in a prior life.
Yep.
So,
Okay. All right. That sounds good. Any questions about any of that?
No, my only question is you mentioned the contract with Gorman and the audit. Are we gonna maybe work on that a little earlier this year?
the audit itself?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're scheduled to be out next week, right,
26th.
26th. Yep, so they'll be out, and then on that front, just as an update, the audit, the AFR deadline is the end of October. There's an automatic 30-day extension that we don't have to file for. And I'll say historically, we've then not had to extend past the November, that 30-day automatic, which basically puts us at the end of November. We've historically not had to file any extension into December. Last year was an exception. And so we'll have the AFR complete, I'll take the tide and submitted by the end of November, which is that extended,
Right,
automatic extension deadline.
gotcha. Okay, cool. All right, you good then? All right, we'll move on to our last policy 616, payment of bills.
So this will be something that we'll have to go to policy, but I felt it was prudent to bring it to finance first.
Sure.
And we've had some instances where, we have late payment of bills. And, sometimes it's a matter of we actually didn't get the bill, or it sat on somebody's desk, or, it just went missing, or we didn't have all the paperwork.
That
we didn't
customer
receive
hurt.
everything. I know. So there are other times where, because of the way that our policy is written, does essentially prohibit us from making payments or cutting checks prior to then going to the board for approval or ratification.
Which doesn't really happen.
It can become problematic, and I'll give a for instance, if we had this past, I should have my calendar up, but this past board meeting, essentially any invoices that are in a week ahead, we probably get, it's probably going to, a good chance of being entered and processed for the board meeting. If it's the Monday of the week, the board meeting week, that invoice isn't going to get paid with that, with that Thursday, and then it sits.
Yeah.
It won't get paid until we
So
get
it's
around
3
to
weeks,
the next.
or could be 2 weeks late. Yeah,
Right.
gotcha.
Which becomes problematic. We've had instances where we'll get the threat of a late payment fee or something along those nature, those lines. We're usually pretty good as far as
Getting out of them.
them. But that's putting us in a situation that we don't want to be in. So we want to be a good steward of the district. We want to have a good vendor relation. And so being in that situation is problematic.
Then a certain carbon copy would be helpful.
Exactly, yeah. Yep.
So, and I'll go into, in a full disclosure, even the final point here of utility bills in months that the board does not meet.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
they have to be paid.
They have to get paid, and so there are plenty of times where we're paying the utilities. I mean, we need to make sure that the lights and the electric, the same thing. The lights are on, the water's running, the internet's paid. So that particular line item becomes problematic when we are going to pay them. We need to make sure that the utilities are paid. So essentially, that leads to violating the policy more often than
Yep,
we would like.
I'm not.
And so, this is one policy that I think needs to get revamped, hopefully sooner than later, as I know Dr. Farina's working through from zeros up.
Yeah, 600 is not
I'm
there
going to
yet.
touch base with her and see how we can move this along a little bit, because it is, somewhat problematic. I have a couple of examples of some other districts, and don't get me wrong, we're not alone in having this particular language. I started going through this a while ago as far as other districts in the area that, what do their policy 616s look like? There are plenty that look just like ours. And I'm betting that they violated every single
Just like
month,
we do.
because you can't function to the letter of the law here, letter of the policy. It's not possible. I'm just going to stand with that. So some sample language, and you'll see most, usually the first few are the same. We've got anything that's going to accrue to our advantage. So anybody who offers a discount, if we have a 2% discount in 10 days or in net 30, we will take that discount. That's one thing that's in our policy. Any progress payments to contractors, so all the GIZA projects, well, that was a project that was board approved. That's a payment that's due. Truthfully, even Gorman. So they progress bill as they go. We pay that as we move on. Same as payroll. And so you'll start seeing here at number 4, utility bills, electric, phone, natural gas. There's no stipulation in that particular one of only months that the board does not meet. so that gives a little more flexibility. Fringe benefits in the medical, anything like that is also kind of, related there. In theory, that's getting picked up in our payroll language. Insurance premiums and interest payments, private interest payments. Again, that's one thing that, as they come due, we're paying that, because we don't want to be in violation.
Nobody wants to have a
of
fee on
that. So
that.
there are some of these items that kind of come up, and I think it'd be good to, go through this with the policy committee, and kind of run through what's kind of the best practice as of today, opposed to when we had, last reviewed this policy.
Did we take a look to see if PSBA has a brand new
That was my
616?
question.
Yeah, right.
I was waiting
So
to-
that's- we're not the only ones here.
No, I mean, in the process of getting that from
Okay.
PSBA, and
Okay.
I'm going to go through that, because realistically, we get to payments for services already performed and goods already received. It's usually funny where, okay, we come to the board and say we have Office Depot. Well, the board could very easily go,
Yeah,
don't pay Office Depot, but realistically, we've used the pens and pencils and paper,
right.
we owe it. So that's kind of the semi-humorous part of it, behind it. So I think that we have some work to do on 616. Wanted to bring it to the finance committee prior to then going to policy
Makes
and
sense.
seeing what we can work on. This is just a start of the 600s. We're going to try and weasel this into Andrea's schedule.
Makes sense.
And
Makes sense. I mean, say what you do and do what you say, so.
This is a sample that you came up with, or? did you-
This is from another district.
Okay.
I'll give you, there's another local district as well. So there's some commonalities.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it. I mean, it's probably just a matter of formatting from the different districts that you cleaned it from, but, basically everything on that first page should be relevant and included in the policy. So
Right.
we'll just toss it to the policy committee.
Okay.
Makes sense.
I think that, yeah. I just had two examples from local districts, just as a,
Okay.
like I said, I just want to clarify, we're not alone. I went to a couple other, here are the ones that kind of are the way that I think we need to be, as far as having language that allows for us to basically have a good vendor relation and pay our bills as they're due.
Yeah.
There are plenty of other districts that still have it, probably the older PSBA language, which is probably those 4 bullet points, and that kind of it. So we'll work on getting this over to policy committee and
Okay.
go from there.
All right. That makes sense. All right. Anybody, anything on that? Nope. Anybody have any new business they want to talk about? Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. That's pretty good, 45 minutes.
Sorry, Keith, I tried.
Yeah, that was close.
Actually, we started next week, only.
Oh, that's true.
40.
It was 10 almost, yeah.
Next time I have to come up with 20 minutes of stuff.
That's it,
No,
yeah.
we're slow on seconding that. Judy beat you to it.
Yeah.
I know.
What the heck?
My vote doesn't really count.
Yeah, well.